The snowflakes fell like frozen tears across the main street of Miles City, Montana, and Lily Crawford stood outside the Golden Heart Saloon with her carpet bag at her feet and nowhere left to turn. She had traveled 300 miles by rail and stagecoach to marry a man she had corresponded with for 8 months, only to discover that Samuel Pritchard had taken one look at her through his parlor window and sent his housekeeper out to inform her that the arrangement was terminated. Lily had watched from the porch as the curtain fell back into place, and she understood with crushing clarity that her face, marked by a scar that ran from her left temple to her jawline courtesy of a childhood accident with a spooked horse, had cost her the future she had desperately needed. Now the December wind of 1884 cut through her wool coat, and she had $17 to her name and no family to return to in Ohio. She had tried the boarding house first, but Mrs. Henderson had taken one look at her and announced that all rooms were occupied, though Lily had seen the vacancy sign still hanging in the window. The general store owner had shaken his head before she could even finish asking about work. The dress shop proprietor had actually stepped back when Lily entered, as though the scar might be contagious. With each rejection, the cold seemed to seep deeper into her bones, and the sky grew darker as afternoon surrendered to evening. Lily pulled her shawl tighter and tried to think of what to do next, but her mind felt as frozen as her fingers. She was considering whether she could afford a ticket back to Ohio or whether she would have to wire her aunt, who would accept her return only with bitter triumph, when she heard the sound of hoofbeats on the snow-packed street. She did not look up at first. Men on horses were hardly uncommon in Miles City, which served as a major cattle shipping point on the Northern Pacific Railway. But the hoofbeats slowed, then stopped directly in front of her, and a voice spoke that was low and concerned. "Miss, you look about frozen through. Are you waiting for someone?" Lily lifted her eyes and found herself looking up at a cowboy astride a sturdy buckskin horse. He was perhaps 25 years old, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath his worn Stetson and eyes that were a striking gray-blue even in the fading light. His face was weathered by sun and wind, with strong features and a jaw shadowed by several days of stubble. He wore a heavy canvas coat over wool shirt and vest, and his leather chaps were dusted with snow. But what struck Lily most was his expression, which held genuine worry rather than the disgust or pity she had encountered all afternoon. "No," she managed to say, her voice shaking from cold and the effort of not crying. "I am not waiting for anyone." The cowboy dismounted in one smooth motion and stood before her, tall and broad-shouldered. "Pardon me for being forward, miss, but it is getting on toward dark and the temperature is dropping fast. Do you have somewhere to go?" The question, asked with such straightforward kindness, nearly broke through the wall Lily had built around her composure. She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak, his brow furrowed with concern. "Are you new to town?" "I arrived this morning," Lily said. And then, because she was exhausted and frightened and had nothing left to lose, the whole story came tumbling out. She told him about Samuel Pritchard and the letters and the rejection, about the boarding house and the stores, about how she had no one and nowhere, and was beginning to understand that she might actually freeze to death on this street corner because no one would take her in. The cowboy listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly troubled. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, and Lily braced herself for whatever polite excuse he would offer before riding away. Instead, he said something that made her wonder if the cold had affected her hearing. "Their loss is my greatest gain." Lily stared at him. "I beg your pardon, these people who turned you away," he said, and his voice carried an edge of anger that was clearly not directed at her. Their loss is my greatest gain. If you will allow me, miss, I would like to help you." "You do not even know me," Lily whispered. "I know that you traveled 300 miles on the promise of a man who did not have the courage to face you himself," the cowboy said. "I know that you have been treated with a cruelty you did not deserve, and I know that no decent person leaves a woman stranded in a snowstorm." He paused, then added, "My name is Isaac Coleman. I work as a horse breaker and ranch hand for the Rockingham spread about 6 miles north of town. The foreman is my uncle, and his wife is the finest woman in Montana. If you will consent to ride out there with me, I give you my word that they will give you a warm meal and a safe place to sleep, and we can figure out what comes next when you are not half frozen." Lily searched his face for any sign of ulterior motive, but found only sincerity. Still, caution made her hesitate. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Isaac met her eyes steadily. "Because my sister once found herself stranded in a strange town, and a kind family took her in until I could get to her. I have been looking for a way to pay that forward ever since." He gestured to his horse. "I will not press you, miss, but I hope you will let me help." The wind gusted, driving snow into Lily's face, and she made her decision. "Thank you, Mr. Coleman. I accept your offer." Relief washed over Isaac's features. He picked up her carpet bag and secured it behind his saddle, then offered her his hand. "Can you ride, miss?" "Crawford." "Lily Crawford. And yes, I can ride, though it has been some years. You can ride behind me and hold on. It will be warmer that way." He mounted first, then reached down and pulled her up with surprising ease. Lily settled behind him on the horse, acutely aware that propriety dictated she should not be in such close contact with a man she had just met. But propriety had not kept her warm or found her shelter, and Isaac Coleman had done both. She wrapped her arms around his waist and felt the solid warmth of him through his coat. "Hold tight," he said, and urged the horse into a steady trot. They left Miles City behind, heading north across snow-covered rangeland that seemed to stretch forever beneath the darkening sky. The wind was bitter, but Isaac blocked the worst of it, and Lily found herself pressing closer to his back, grateful for the heat that radiated from him. He was true to his word about the distance. After about 40 minutes of riding, she saw lights ahead and the dark shapes of buildings. The Rockingham was a substantial operation, with a main ranch house, a bunkhouse, several barns, and a network of corrals. Isaac rode directly to the main house, a sturdy 2-story structure with smoke rising from 2 chimneys. He dismounted and helped Lily down, and she stumbled slightly as her half-frozen feet touched the ground. He steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "Come on," he said gently. "Let us get you inside." The door opened before they reached it, and a woman appeared, silhouetted against the warm light from within. "Isaac, is that you? We were starting to worry." "Sorry, Aunt Margaret, I had an important stop to make." Isaac guided Lily up the steps and into the house. The warmth hit her like a physical force, and she swayed. Margaret was a handsome woman in her mid-40s, with graying brown hair pulled back in a practical bun and keen hazel eyes that took in the situation with one sweeping glance. "Merciful heavens, this girl is frozen through." "Isaac, get her by the fire. I'll fetch blankets and hot coffee." Isaac led Lily to the fireplace in the spacious main room, where a fire roared in a stone hearth large enough to roast an entire pig. Lily sank into a chair that Margaret pushed forward, and Isaac knelt to remove her thin boots, which were soaked through. His hands were gentle as he chafed her icy feet, trying to restore circulation. Margaret returned with an armload of quilts and a steaming mug. She wrapped the quilts around Lily and pressed the mug into her hands. "Drink slowly now. You will warm up faster from the inside." Lily obeyed, and the coffee, rich and hot and slightly sweet, seemed to spread warmth through her entire body. Feeling began to return to her fingers and toes with painful prickling, and she could not suppress a gasp. "I know it hurts," Margaret said sympathetically, "but it means nothing is frostbitten. You were lucky Isaac found you when he did." A large man with a weathered face and iron-gray hair entered from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "What is all this commotion?" "Lily, this is my uncle Thomas Coleman," Isaac said. "Uncle Tom, this is Miss Lily Crawford. She had some trouble in town and needed help." Thomas's expression shifted to concern. "What kind of trouble?" Isaac gave a concise explanation while Lily sat cocooned in blankets, sipping coffee and absorbing the fact that she was safe and warm, and these people were helping her without hesitation or judgment. When Isaac finished, Thomas's face had darkened with anger. "Sam Pritchard is a damned fool," he said flatly. "Pardon my language, Miss Crawford, but any man who would treat a woman that way deserves to be horsewhipped, and the rest of them in town ought to be ashamed." He looked at his nephew with approval. "You did right bringing her here, Isaac. Miss Crawford can stay in the guest room upstairs," Margaret said decisively. "Isaac, bring her bag up. Miss Crawford, when you have thawed out a bit, I will show you where you can wash up and then we will have supper. You must be starving." Lily found her voice at last. "You are all very kind. I do not know how to thank you." "No thanks needed," Thomas said gruffly. "We take care of our own out here, and as far as I am concerned, anyone Isaac brings to this house is one of our own." Over the next hour, Lily was shown to a comfortable room with a real bed and clean linens, given a basin of warm water to wash with, and invited to join the family for supper. The meal was simple but abundant. Venison stew with vegetables, fresh bread, butter, and dried apple pie for dessert. Besides the Colemans and Lily, there were 2 ranch hands who ate with the family, both young men who tipped their hats politely to Lily and did not stare at her scar. Throughout the meal, Lily found her attention drawn again and again to Isaac. He sat across from her, and whenever their eyes met, he gave her an encouraging smile. He had kind eyes, she thought. Eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and that looked at her as though he actually saw her, rather than just the scar that had defined her in the eyes of everyone else she had met that day. After supper, Margaret shooed the men out to the bunkhouse or to evening chores and sat with Lily by the fire. "Now then," she said gently, "Isaac told us the bare bones of your situation, but I expect there is more to the story. Would you like to talk about it?" Lily hesitated, then found herself opening up to this kind, steady woman. She explained that her parents had died of influenza 3 years earlier, leaving her in the care of her father's sister, who resented the burden. Lily had worked as a seamstress to earn her keep, but her aunt made it clear that she expected Lily to marry and remove herself from the household as soon as possible. When Lily's attempts to find a husband locally failed due to her scar, her aunt had placed an advertisement for her in a matrimonial paper. Samuel Pritchard had responded. "He never asked for a photograph," Lily said quietly. "His letters were kind and interesting. He wrote about his mercantile business and his house, and how he was looking for a helpmate and companion. I thought perhaps he was a man who valued character over appearance. I should have known better." "You should have known that people are capable of decency," Margaret said firmly. "The failing is his, not yours. That scar does not define you, girl. Do not let it. Everyone else seems to think it does. Everyone else is a fool." Margaret leaned forward. "I am going to tell you something, Lily. May I call you Lily?" "Of course." "My youngest sister was born with a twisted foot. People said she would never marry, never have a normal life. Do you know what happened? She married a fine man who loved her desperately, and they have 4 healthy children and run a successful freight business in Helena. People who judge based on appearances are people whose opinions are not worth having. She paused. Now, you need to decide what you want to do. You are welcome to stay here as long as you need to. We can always use help with the household work, and I would be glad of the company. Or if you prefer, Thomas can take you into town tomorrow and help you arrange passage back to Ohio. The choice is yours. Lily thought of her aunt's cold house and colder demeanor. She thought of Ohio, where everyone knew her as the scarred girl who could not catch a husband. Then she thought of Isaac's words, "Their loss is my greatest gain." "If you truly do not mind," she said slowly, "I would like to stay for a while. I can work for my keep. I am a good seamstress, and I can cook and clean and do whatever is needed." Margaret's face broke into a warm smile. "Then it is settled. Welcome to the Rockingham, Lily Crawford." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Lily threw herself into helping Margaret with the endless work of running a ranch household. She cooked and cleaned, mended clothes and linens, churned butter, and even tried her hand at baking bread, which came out better than she expected. Margaret was a patient teacher and a cheerful companion, and Lily found herself relaxing in ways she had not in years. But it was Isaac who occupied her thoughts most. He worked long days breaking horses and mending fences and doing the 100 other tasks required on a cattle ranch in winter, but he always made time to speak with her. He would come in for supper with his face reddened by cold and wind, and his eyes would seek her out across the room. After the meal, if he was not too exhausted, he would sit by the fire and talk with her about everything and nothing. Lily learned that he was 24 years old, that he had been working at the Rockingham for 6 years, and that he had a gift with horses that bordered on uncanny. Thomas confirmed this, saying that Isaac could gentle the wildest mustang and had never met a horse he could not ride. Isaac spoke of his work with a quiet passion that made his whole face light up, and Lily found herself captivated by his enthusiasm. In turn, she told him about her life in Ohio, about her parents and her love of reading and her skill with a needle. She spoke of things she had not talked about in years, and Isaac listened with an attention that made her feel truly heard. He asked questions that showed he cared about her answers, and he never once made her feel that her scar was all he could see. One evening, about a week after her arrival, Lily was sitting by the fire working on a shirt she was making for Thomas when Isaac came in from the barn. He had snow in his hair and on his shoulders, and his cheeks were flushed with cold, still snowing out there. Margaret asked from her chair where she was knitting. "Coming down steady," Isaac confirmed. He hung up his coat and hat, then crossed to the fire, rubbing his hands together. "Going to be a cold night." "Sit down and warm up," Margaret said. "Lily, pour Isaac some coffee, would you?" Lily set aside her sewing and fetched a mug from the kitchen. When she handed it to Isaac, their fingers brushed, and she felt a jolt of awareness that made her breath catch. From the way his eyes widened slightly, she thought he might have felt it too. "Thank you," he said softly. Margaret glanced between them with a knowing look, then announced, "I believe I will go check on the bread I have rising in the kitchen. You young people enjoy the fire." When she had gone, an oddly charged silence fell. Lily returned to her sewing, acutely conscious of Isaac's presence in the chair beside her. Finally, he spoke. "Lily, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy here? Truly happy, I mean, not just making the best of things?" Lily looked up from her needlework and met his eyes. "I am happier than I have been in a very long time. Your aunt and uncle have been wonderfully kind, and the work is satisfying." "Why do you ask?" Isaac leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands wrapped around the coffee mug. "Because I want you to stay, not just for a while. I want you to stay permanently." Lily's heart began to beat faster. "Isaac, please let me finish." He set down the mug and turned to face her fully. From the moment I saw you standing in that snow, looking so lost and so brave at the same time, something shifted in me. And this past week, getting to know you, talking with you, watching you become part of this place, that something has grown into a certainty. He reached out and gently took her hand. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a short time. But I also know that I have never met anyone like you. You are strong and kind and smart and so beautiful it makes my chest ache. Beautiful, Lily whispered, her free hand moving unconsciously to her scarred cheek. Isaac lifted his other hand and cupped her face, his thumb tracing the line of the scar with infinite tenderness. Beautiful, he repeated firmly. This does not diminish you, Lily. If anything, it speaks to your courage. You survived an accident that could have killed you, and you kept going despite people treating you as though you were less than whole. That takes a strength most people never have to find. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. I never thought anyone would see me that way. Then everyone else is blind. Isaac moved from his chair to kneel before her, still holding her hand. Lily Crawford, I am just a cowboy with more ambition than current prospects. But I am a hard worker, and I know horses, and Thomas has promised that if I stay on another 2 years, he will help me start my own breeding operation. I can offer you a future if you will have it, if you will have me. Are you asking me to marry you? Lily's voice shook with emotion. I am. I know it is quick. If you need time to think about it, I understand, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are the woman I want beside me, Lily. Today, tomorrow, and for all the years after that. Lily looked into his earnest, handsome face and felt something inside her unfurl like a flower opening to the sun. This man, who had seen her at her lowest moment and had chosen to help rather than turn away. This man, who looked at her scar and called her beautiful. This man who spoke of the future as though it was a gift he wanted to share with her. Yes, she said, and her voice rang clear and strong. Yes, Isaac Coleman, I will marry you. The joy that blazed across his face was like sunrise. He surged up and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her and spinning her in a circle. Lily laughed, a sound of pure happiness that she had not heard from her own throat in years. When he set her down, his hands framed her face and he looked at her as though she was the most precious thing in the world. "May I kiss you?" he asked. In answer, Lily rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, almost tentative, and then deepened as Isaac pulled her closer. Lily's hands fisted in his shirt, and she felt his heart pounding against her chest, matching the wild rhythm of her own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I am going to spend every day of my life making sure you never regret this," he said fervently. "I could never regret choosing you," Lily replied. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms until Margaret's voice called from the kitchen. "Is it safe to come back in, or should I give you 2 more time?" Isaac laughed and called back, "You can come in, Aunt Margaret. We have news." Margaret appeared in the doorway with a smile that suggested she had suspected exactly what was happening. "Let me guess. There is going to be a wedding." "There is," Isaac confirmed, his arm tight around Lily's waist. "If you and Uncle Tom do not object." "Object." "I have been hoping for this since the second day you were here, watching you two make eyes at each other over breakfast." Margaret crossed to them and pulled Lily into a warm hug. "Welcome to the family, dear girl, truly and officially." Thomas, when informed of the engagement, clapped Isaac on the back hard enough to stagger him and told Lily that she was getting a good man. "Stubborn as a mule sometimes, and he will track mud through your kitchen more often than not, but his heart is true." "I know," Lily said, looking at Isaac with such open affection that Thomas chuckled. "You two have it bad," he said, not unkindly. "When is the wedding?" Isaac and Lily looked at each other. "Spring," Isaac suggested. "That will give us time to prepare, and the weather will be better for any guests who want to travel." But Lily surprised herself by shaking her head. "I do not want to wait that long. We could marry in town next week, could we not? I do not need a big wedding, Isaac. I just need you." Isaac's eyes softened. "Next week it is, then." They rode into Miles City on a clear, cold morning 4 days later, accompanied by Thomas and Margaret. Lily wore her best dress, a gray wool that Margaret had helped her alter and trim with new ribbons. She also wore a bonnet that partially shaded the scarred side of her face, though she had debated leaving it off entirely. Isaac had kissed her and told her to wear whatever made her comfortable, that she was beautiful either way. The ceremony took place in the small church on the edge of town, presided over by a minister who had known the Coleman family for years. There were few guests, just the ranch hands from the Rockingham and a couple of Thomas's friends, but Lily did not care. Her eyes were only for Isaac, who stood before the altar in his best suit, looking both nervous and elated as she walked down the aisle toward him, when the minister asked if Isaac would take Lily as his wife. His "I do" rang out strong and clear. And when Lily spoke her own vows, she meant every word with a depth of feeling that would have shocked her 2 weeks earlier. But 2 weeks earlier, she had not known that a man could look past scars to the person beneath. She had not known that love could bloom so quickly, like a desert flower after rain, vibrant and real and undeniable. "You may kiss your bride," the minister said, and Isaac did, thoroughly and enthusiastically, to the point that Thomas coughed pointedly and Margaret laughed. As they emerged from the church into the bright winter sunlight, Lily saw Samuel Pritchard standing across the street, watching them. His expression was difficult to read, some mix of surprise and perhaps regret. Lily felt Isaac tense beside her, but she squeezed his hand and kept walking toward the wagon where Thomas waited. She did not need closure from Samuel Pritchard. The rejection that had seemed like the end of her world had instead been the beginning of something far better. Isaac helped her into the wagon, then climbed up beside her. As Thomas clicked to the horses and they began to move, Isaac wrapped his arm around Lily's shoulders and pulled her close. "Mrs. Coleman," he said, testing out the name. "Mr. Coleman," she replied, smiling up at him. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." They spent their wedding night in the guest room at the ranch house, which Margaret had decorated with sprigs of evergreen and winter berries. Isaac carried Lily over the threshold, and when he set her down, she reached up to remove her bonnet. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear but from anticipation. Isaac's hands covered hers, stilling them. "Are you nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "Are you terrified?" he said with such honest surprise that she laughed. "I want this to be perfect for you, Lily. I want everything to be perfect for you always." "It does not have to be perfect," Lily said softly. "It just has to be us." Isaac kissed her then, slow and deep, and Lily felt any remaining nervousness melt away. This was Isaac, her husband, the man who had seen her at her worst and had chosen her anyway. She trusted him completely. Their coming together was tender and passionate by turns, punctuated by whispered words and shared laughter when they fumbled with unfamiliar buttons and ties. Isaac was patient and attentive, making sure of her comfort and pleasure, and when they finally joined fully, Lily felt as though something fundamental had shifted in the universe. This was what it meant to be truly seen and truly loved. This was what she had been waiting for without knowing it. Afterward, they lay tangled together beneath the quilts, Lily's head on Isaac's chest, his fingers trailing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I am glad Samuel Pritchard rejected me," Lily said. When Isaac started to protest, she pressed her fingers to his lips. "I mean it. If he had not, I would never have been standing on that street corner. You would never have found me. I would be married to a man who saw me as a disappointment rather than to you, who sees me as a gift." Isaac caught her hand and kissed her palm. "Their loss is my greatest gain," he said, echoing the words he had spoken that first day. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving that I know how lucky I am." Winter gave way to early spring, and Lily settled into her new life as Isaac's wife with a contentment that still sometimes surprised her. She and Margaret ran the household together, and Lily discovered that she enjoyed the rhythm of ranch life, the way each season brought its own tasks and challenges. She learned to recognize the different horses by sight and temperament, and she particularly loved watching Isaac work with them. He had a gift that went beyond skill. Lily saw it in the way he approached a skittish Mustang, his movements calm and deliberate, his voice a low, soothing murmur. She saw it in the way horses responded to him, gradually relaxing, gradually trusting. Isaac never forced or frightened them into compliance. He earned their cooperation through patience and respect, and the results were horses that were not just broken but genuinely willing partners. "He gets it from his mother," Thomas told Lily one afternoon as they watched Isaac work with a particularly difficult sorrel mare. "She had the same touch, could gentle any creature, wild or domestic. Isaac inherited that from her, along with her stubborn streak." "What happened to her?" Lily asked gently. Isaac rarely spoke of his parents. "She died when Isaac was 14. Fever took her, fast and cruel. His father had passed 2 years before that, kicked by a bull. Margaret and I took Isaac in, and he has been like a son to us ever since." Thomas glanced at her. "He is a good man, Lily. I know you know that, but I want you to hear it from someone who has watched him grow up. He will never be rich, probably, but he will work himself to the bone to provide for you and any children you might have. And he will love you fierce and true until his dying day." "I know," Lily said, her eyes on her husband as he coaxed the mare to take a few steps toward him. "I am the luckiest woman in Montana." "He would say he is the lucky one," Thomas replied with a chuckle. Spring brought roundup, and the ranch became a hive of activity as the cowboys gathered the cattle that had been scattered across the winter range. Isaac was gone from dawn until well past dark most days, and Lily found herself missing him with an intensity that made her ache. But when he did come home, exhausted and covered in dust, his face would light up at the sight of her, and he would sweep her into his arms as though they had been parted for weeks rather than hours. One evening in late May, when the air was finally warm and the grass had turned the hills emerald green, Isaac asked Lily to take a ride with him. They saddled 2 horses and rode out across the rangeland as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, enjoying the feel of the horse beneath her and the wind in her hair. "You will see," Isaac said mysteriously. He led her to a spot about 3 miles from the ranch house, where a small creek wound through a valley dotted with cottonwood trees. The creek was running full and clear with snowmelt, and wildflowers carpeted the ground in shades of purple, yellow, and white. Isaac dismounted and helped Lily down, then walked her to a slight rise that overlooked the valley. "What do you think?" "It is beautiful," Lily said honestly. "But why did you bring me here?" Isaac turned to face her, and she saw nervous excitement in his eyes. "This is ours. 200 acres. Thomas sold it to me at a price I can actually afford with a loan I can pay off over 5 years. It is not much yet, but there is good water and grass and room to expand. I want to build our house here, Lily. I want to start our horse breeding operation on this land. I want to build our future here." Lily looked out over the valley, seeing it through new eyes. She could picture a house nestled among the cottonwoods, a barn and corrals nearby, horses grazing in the meadows. She could picture children playing by the creek, their laughter carried on the wind. She could picture a life here, a full and happy life. "When can we start building?" she asked, and Isaac let out a whoop of joy. He picked her up and spun her around just as he had the night they got engaged. "We can start now if you want. I have been saving every penny for 3 years. It will not be fancy at first, but I promise I will make it comfortable." "I do not need fancy," Lily said. "I just need you and a place that is ours." They sat on the hillside as the sun set, making plans and dreaming aloud. Isaac sketched rough layouts in the dirt with a stick, showing where he thought the house should sit and where the barn should go. Lily suggested a vegetable garden near the creek where the soil would be rich, and maybe some fruit trees if they could get them established. They talked until the stars came out, and then Isaac spread his coat on the ground and they lay back to watch the sky deepen from blue to indigo to black, with the Milky Way splashed across it like spilled cream. "Are you happy, Lily?" Isaac asked quietly. "Happier than I knew was possible," she answered truthfully. "Sometimes I think back to that day in the snow when I thought my life was ending. I could not have imagined then that 6 months later I would be here with you, planning our future. It feels like a miracle." Isaac rolled onto his side and propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her. "Not a miracle, just what should have been all along. You deserve every good thing, Lily Coleman." She reached up and traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. "I love you." "I do not think I have said that plainly enough." "You show me every day," Isaac said, "but I will never get tired of hearing it. I love you too, more than I have words for." He kissed her then, long and slow, and one kiss led to another until they were tangled together on his coat beneath the stars. They made love there on their own land, under the vast Montana sky, and Lily thought she had never felt more alive or more certain that she was exactly where she belonged. Construction on the house began in early June. Thomas and the ranch hands pitched in to help during slack times, and Isaac worked on it every moment he could spare. Lily came out daily, bringing lunch and helping however she could, which mostly meant keeping track of tools and measurements and offering encouragement. The house rose slowly, a simple 4-room structure with a solid foundation and walls of logs chinked with mud. It was not large or elegant, but it was well built and sturdy, and every nail Isaac hammered was an act of love. By late August, the house was finished enough to move into, though there was still work to be done on the interior. Margaret helped Lily sew curtains and make quilts, and Thomas gifted them a beautiful table he had built himself. The ranch hands contributed various items: a rocking chair, a set of dishes, a braided rug. When Lily and Isaac finally spent their first night in their own home, lying in their own bed in their own bedroom, Lily felt a sense of completeness that brought tears to her eyes. "Why are you crying?" Isaac asked, alarmed. "Because I am so happy," Lily said, laughing through her tears. "Is that foolish?" "Not even a little bit," Isaac said, pulling her close and kissing the top of her head. "Though you could give a man warning before you start weeping. Nearly stopped my heart." Lily elbowed him gently in the ribs and he laughed. They fell asleep that way, wrapped around each other, and woke to their first sunrise in their own home streaming through the window that faced east. The fall and winter passed in a blur of work and small joys. Isaac began acquiring horses for breeding, starting with 2 good mares and a young stud with excellent bloodlines that Thomas helped him purchase. Lily continued to help Margaret at the ranch house several times a week, and she also took on sewing work from some of the other ranch families in the area, earning a bit of money that she saved carefully. It was in January, as the one-year anniversary of their meeting approached, that Lily began to suspect she might be pregnant. She was late, and she felt a persistent queasiness that had nothing to do with the quality of the food. She said nothing to Isaac at first, not wanting to raise his hopes if she was wrong. But when another week passed and her courses still did not come, she confided in Margaret. Margaret took one look at her face and smiled. "You are expecting?" "I think so," Lily said. "I am not certain yet." "I am," Margaret said with the confidence of a woman who had raised 4 children and helped deliver dozens more. "You have that look about you. When did you last bleed?" Lily told her, and Margaret counted on her fingers. "I would guess you are 6 or 7 weeks along. The babe will likely come in late August or early September." Lily pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling wonder and a flutter of fear. "I do not know if I am ready to be a mother." "No one is the first time," Margaret said gently, "but you will learn and you will be wonderful at it." And Isaac is going to be beside himself with joy. That evening, after supper, Lily told Isaac her news. She had worried about how to bring it up, but in the end, she simply took his hand and placed it on her stomach and said, "There is someone new joining our family in late summer." Isaac stared at her, his expression uncomprehending for a moment. Then understanding dawned and his face transformed with such pure delight that Lily's breath caught. "A baby, we are having a baby, we are," Lily confirmed, her own smile matching his. Isaac let out a shout that probably carried all the way to the ranch house, then picked Lily up and spun her in a careful circle before setting her down and dropping to his knees. He pressed his face to her stomach, his arms wrapped around her waist. "Hello in there, little one," he said softly. "This is your papa. I cannot wait to meet you." Lily ran her fingers through his hair, feeling her heart so full it might burst. This was her life now, this beautiful, unexpected, miraculous life. She thought of herself standing in the snow a year ago, broken and lost, and she thought of the man who had stopped to help her. "Their loss is my greatest gain," he had said. It had been true for him, and it had been equally true for her. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Lily found the summer heat oppressive as her belly swelled. Isaac fussed over her constantly, insisting she rest more and work less, bringing her cold water from the creek and fanning her when she complained of being overheated. He talked to the baby every night, telling it about the horses and the land, and how much he already loved it. Margaret was a steadfast source of advice and reassurance, helping Lily prepare tiny clothes and blankets and explaining what to expect during the birth. As the due date approached, Lily felt increasingly nervous, but also ready. She wanted to meet this child, this person she and Isaac had created together. The baby came on a warm evening in early September, arriving after 12 hours of labor that Lily would later describe as the hardest thing she had ever done. Margaret attended the birth, calm and capable, coaching Lily through each contraction. Isaac stayed by her side the whole time, holding her hand and wiping her face with a cool cloth, even though he looked nearly as pale and frightened as Lily felt. But when the baby finally emerged, squalling and red-faced and perfect, all the pain evaporated in an instant. Margaret cleaned the infant quickly and placed him in Lily's arms, and Lily looked down at her son with a love so fierce and immediate it staggered her. "It is a boy," she whispered to Isaac, who was staring at the baby with an expression of awestruck wonder. "A son," Isaac breathed. He reached out with one finger and stroked the baby's soft cheek. "He is beautiful. He is perfect. Lily, we have a son." "What should we name him?" Lily asked. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at their child, Isaac said, "I always liked the name James after my father, James Coleman." "James," Lily repeated, testing it out. "Jamie when he is little. Yes, I like that. James Isaac Coleman. Isaac's eyes grew suspiciously bright. You want to give him my name as his middle name? Of course I do. You are his father. You are the best man I know. Isaac leaned down and kissed her gently, then kissed the baby's forehead. Hello, James. Welcome to the world, son. The next few months were exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Baby James was a good baby overall, but he woke frequently to nurse, and Lily felt as though she was moving through a fog of sleeplessness. Isaac helped whenever he could, walking the floor with Jamie when he fussed, changing him when needed, and taking over household tasks so Lily could rest. He was a natural father, patient and gentle, and watching him with their son made Lily fall in love with him all over again. As Jamie grew from a newborn to an infant, developing a personality and preferences, the love Lily and Isaac felt for him only deepened. He had Isaac's gray-blue eyes and Lily's dark hair, and when he smiled, which he did often, dimples appeared in both cheeks. He was a happy child, curious about everything, and he seemed to find joy in the simplest things. Sunlight through a window, the sound of his father's voice, the sight of the horses in the corral. He is going to be a horseman like his father, Thomas predicted when Jamie was 6 months old and already reaching eagerly toward any horse that came near. As long as he is happy and healthy, I do not care what he becomes, Lily said, though she smiled at the thought. The years rolled on, each one bringing its own challenges and triumphs. The horse breeding operation grew slowly but steadily, and Isaac's reputation for producing well-trained, reliable horses spread throughout the region. They acquired more land, adding another 100 acres to their original property. They built a proper barn and expanded the house, adding 2 more bedrooms in anticipation of future children. Jamie grew into a bright, energetic toddler, then a curious little boy who followed his father everywhere and asked endless questions about horses and cattle and the workings of the ranch. When he was 3, Lily became pregnant again, and this time the baby was a girl. They named her Lucy Margaret Coleman, after no one in particular, but because they both liked the name and wanted to honor Margaret with the middle name. Lucy was a quieter baby than Jamie had been, with solemn dark eyes that seemed to take in everything. She adored her older brother, who was surprisingly gentle with her despite his sometimes rambunctious nature. Watching her 2 children play together, Lily often marveled at how far she had come from that frightened, rejected woman in the snow. By the time Jamie was 7 and Lucy was 4, Lily was pregnant for a 3rd time. This baby was another boy whom they named Thomas Henry Coleman, called Henry to avoid confusion with Uncle Tom. Henry was the image of Isaac, from his dark curls to his easy smile, and he had a sunny disposition that charmed everyone who met him. Life was full and busy. There were always horses to train, children to care for, crops to tend, and 100 other tasks that filled each day from sunrise to well past sunset. But there were also moments of pure happiness. Family meals around the table Isaac had built, evenings spent by the fire with the children playing nearby, Sunday rides across their land with all 5 of them on horseback. Lily's scar had faded somewhat over the years, the angry red mellowing to a pale silver line, but it was still visible. Occasionally, she would see someone stare at it, and for a moment the old self-consciousness would flare. But then Isaac would catch her eye and smile, or one of the children would climb into her lap, and she would remember that she was loved completely and exactly as she was. The scar was part of her story, but it did not define her. It never had, no matter what Samuel Pritchard or anyone else had thought. One spring day when Jamie was 12, Lucy 9, and Henry 6, the family went into Miles City for supplies. It was a beautiful day, warm and clear, and the town was bustling with activity. As they walked down the main street, Lily carrying a basket and Isaac guiding Henry by the hand while Jamie and Lucy ran ahead, they encountered Samuel Pritchard coming out of his mercantile. Samuel stopped short, staring at them. He was heavier than Lily remembered, with lines of discontent etched into his face. His gaze traveled from Lily to Isaac to the children and back again. "Miss Crawford," he said uncertainly, then corrected himself. "Mrs. Coleman, I suppose, Mr. Pritchard," Lily said coolly. Isaac shifted closer to her, a silent show of support, Samuel's attention fixed on the children, who had circled back and now clustered around their parents. "These are your children." "They are," Isaac said, his voice carrying a distinct note of pride. Samuel looked at Lily again, something that might have been regret flickering in his eyes. "You seem to have done well for yourself." "I have been extraordinarily blessed," Lily agreed. She felt no anger toward him anymore, only a distant pity. He had let fear and superficiality rob him of the possibility of real connection. She, on the other hand, had gained everything. "Mama, can we go to the candy shop?" Lucy asked, tugging on Lily's skirt. "If your father says it is all right," Lily said. Isaac grinned and dug into his pocket for coins. "Go ahead, but share with your brothers." The children dashed off toward the candy shop with instructions to stay together and come right back. Samuel watched them go, then said awkwardly, "They are fine children. You and your husband must be very proud." "We are," Lily said simply. There seemed to be nothing more to say. Samuel nodded stiffly and walked away, and Lily turned to Isaac. "That was strange." "He looked like a man who knows he made a terrible mistake," Isaac observed. "Good. He should regret what he did to you." "If he had not rejected me, I would never have met you," Lily pointed out. "So, in a way, I suppose I should thank him." "Please do not," Isaac said with feeling. "I might have to punch him, and I do not want to get arrested in front of our children." Lily laughed and linked her arm through his. They walked together toward the candy shop, where 3 excited children would soon emerge with peppermint sticks and licorice whips, and Lily felt nothing but gratitude for the strange, winding path that had brought her to this moment. As the years continued to pass, the Coleman family became a fixture in the community around Miles City. Isaac's horse breeding operation thrived, and he gained a reputation not just for quality animals but for honest dealing and fair prices. Lily, meanwhile, became known for her skill with a needle, and she often took commissions for fancy dressmaking from the wealthier families in town. She also quietly mentored young women who found themselves in difficult circumstances, offering work and advice, and sometimes just a listening ear. Jamie grew into a tall, capable young man who shared his father's gift with horses. He began working the breeding operation alongside Isaac when he was 15, and by 18, he was as skilled a trainer as his father. Lucy proved to have a talent for numbers and helped manage the business side of things, keeping meticulous records and handling correspondence with buyers. Henry, the youngest, was still finding his way, but he showed an interest in ranching more broadly and often spent time at the Rocking M with Thomas, who was now in his 70s but still sharp and active. Margaret passed away peacefully in her sleep when Lily was 35, and her loss was deeply felt by the entire family. Thomas followed 2 years later, leaving the Rocking M to Isaac with the provision that it be shared equally with his siblings when they came to claim their portions. Isaac and Lily discussed moving to the larger ranch, but in the end decided to stay on their own land, which had become not just a home but a legacy they were building for their children. When Lily was 40, with Jamie 23 and courting a sweet girl from a neighboring ranch, Lucy 20 and helping full-time with the business, and Henry 17, and as tall as his father, Isaac surprised her with a trip. He arranged for the children to manage things for 2 weeks and took Lily on the train all the way to San Francisco. It was Lily's first time seeing the ocean, and she stood on the beach with tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the vastness and beauty of it. Isaac wrapped his arms around her from behind and rested his chin on top of her head. "Happy?" he asked. "Unbelievably," she said. "I still cannot quite believe this is my life, that you are my husband, that we have built all of this together." "Believe it," Isaac said firmly. "You deserve every moment of happiness, Lily. Every single one." They spent 2 weeks exploring the city, eating in restaurants, attending the theater, and walking hand in hand along the waterfront like young sweethearts. It was a different kind of happiness from the everyday contentment of their life at home, sharp and bright, and almost dizzying in its intensity. But Lily found that as much as she enjoyed the adventure, she also looked forward to going home, to the ranch and the children and the familiar rhythm of their lives. On the train ride back, Isaac said, "I have been thinking. Jamie is going to marry Eliza this fall, and I expect they will want to build their own place on the property. We should start planning for that. And Lucy has been corresponding with that horse trader's son from Billings. She has not said anything, but I would not be surprised if there is a proposal in the works. They are growing up," Lily said with a mixture of pride and melancholy. "Soon they will all have lives of their own." "That is how it should be," Isaac said. "We raised them to be independent and capable. Now we get to watch them build their own futures. And we will have grandchildren," Lily said, brightening at the thought. "God willing," Isaac agreed. He took her hand and laced their fingers together. "But whatever comes, we will face it together, just like we have faced everything else." Lily squeezed his hand, thinking back to the moment they had met, when she had been at her lowest and he had offered her hope. More than 20 years had passed since then, and her love for him had only grown deeper and more certain with each passing day. He was her partner, her best friend, the father of her children, and the great love of her life. "Their loss was your greatest gain," she said softly, echoing the words he had spoken so long ago. Isaac lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it. "Our greatest gain, Lily, ours." The years that followed brought the changes Isaac had predicted. Jamie married Eliza, and they built a small house on the eastern edge of the property, near the creek where Isaac had first shown Lily their land. Within a year, Eliza gave birth to a baby girl, making Lily and Isaac grandparents for the first time. Holding that tiny infant, Lily felt the same fierce rush of love she had experienced with her own children, and she understood in a new way the bonds that connected generations. Lucy did indeed marry the horse trader's son, a kind and ambitious young man named Daniel, and they moved to Billings where they started their own trading business. She visited often, and Lily treasured those visits, watching her daughter blossom into a confident, capable woman. Henry, after much deliberation, decided to join the newly formed Montana Stock Growers Association and become an advocate for ranchers' rights. It was different from the path his siblings had chosen, but it suited his personality and his passion for justice. Lily and Isaac supported him wholeheartedly, even when it meant he traveled frequently and was away from home for long stretches. As Lily moved into her late 40s and then her 50s, she found that her priorities shifted. The business was well established, the children were settled, and she had more time to pursue her own interests. She began teaching sewing to young girls in the community, passing on skills that had served her so well. She also became involved in efforts to help women who found themselves in situations similar to the one she had been in years ago. Alone, rejected, with nowhere to turn. She opened her home to several such women over the years, offering them work and support until they could get on their feet. Isaac, watching her tireless advocacy, told her often how proud he was of her. His own work continued to evolve as well. As he moved into his 50s, he did less of the physical training himself and more of the planning and breeding decisions. Jamie took over most of the day-to-day work, and together father and son built the Coleman breeding operation into one of the most respected in Montana. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Isaac took Lily back to the spot where he had first shown her their land, where he had proposed building their future. It was a warm summer evening, much like that evening so many years ago, and the wildflowers were in bloom. "Do you remember what I told you here?" Isaac asked. "You said this was ours, 200 acres and a dream. And do you remember what you said?" Lily smiled. "I asked when we could start building." "You never hesitated," Isaac said wonderingly. "You just trusted me, trusted us, and jumped in with both feet." "I have never regretted it," Lily said. "Not for a single moment." Isaac pulled a small box from his pocket and handed it to her. Inside was a delicate gold locket on a chain. Lily opened it and found 2 tiny photographs, one of her and Isaac on their wedding day and one of their 3 children taken a few years earlier. "It is beautiful," she breathed. "Not as beautiful as you," Isaac said. He took the locket and fastened it around her neck. "I know I do not say it enough, but you are the reason for everything good in my life, Lily. You are my partner, my love, my best friend. I would be lost without you." "And I without you," Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. She cupped his face in her hands. "You saved me, Isaac Coleman. You saw me when everyone else looked away, and you loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You gave me a home and a family and a life beyond my wildest dreams." "I did not save you," Isaac said gently. "You saved yourself by having the courage to accept help. I just got lucky enough to be the one standing in the right place at the right time." They stood there in the gathering twilight, holding each other, and Lily felt the same certainty she had felt on their wedding day. This was exactly where she was meant to be. This was the man she was meant to love. And this beautiful, hard-won life they had built together was exactly what she had been meant to find. As they grew older still, Lily and Isaac settled into a comfortable rhythm. They became the patriarch and matriarch of a growing family. Jamie and Eliza had 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. Lucy and Daniel had 2 sons. Henry eventually married a school teacher from Helena, and they had twin daughters. The ranch property echoed with the sounds of grandchildren playing, and Sunday dinners became raucous, joyful affairs with 3 generations gathered around tables that had to be extended with boards and sawhorses to fit everyone. Lily's hair went from dark brown to gray to silver, and Isaac's face became lined and weathered, his dark hair turning iron gray and then white. But when he looked at her, his eyes still held the same warmth and love they had held when he was a young cowboy stopping to help a stranded woman in the snow. And when Lily looked at him, she still saw the man who had called her beautiful and had meant it, who had looked past her scar to see the person she truly was, on a cold January evening, exactly 40 years after they had first met. Lily and Isaac sat by the fire in the house he had built for her. Their children and grandchildren had just left after a boisterous celebration of their anniversary. The house was quiet now, peaceful, and Lily rested her head on Isaac's shoulder, his arm warm around her. 40 years, Isaac said wonderingly. "How did that happen so fast?" "I do not know," Lily admitted, "but I am grateful for every single day, even the hard ones, even those. They made the good ones sweeter." Lily lifted her head to look at him. "Do you know what I think about sometimes?" "What?" "That day I stood in the snow in Miles City. I was so afraid, Isaac. I thought my life was over. I thought I would die alone and unwanted." She touched the locket she still wore every day. I could never have imagined that 40 years later, I would be sitting here with you, surrounded by children and grandchildren, having lived a life so full and rich, it sometimes takes my breath away. Isaac's eyes were suspiciously bright. I knew that day you were special. I looked at you and something in my chest just clicked into place. Like a key turning in a lock, I knew you were meant to be mine. And you were meant to be mine, Lily said softly. My cowboy who stopped in the snow and changed my entire world with one act of kindness. Not kindness, Isaac corrected. Recognition. I recognized you, Lily. I recognized that you were the person I had been waiting for my whole life. I just had to make sure you knew it too. You spent 40 years making sure I knew it, Lily said, her voice breaking slightly. And I do. I know I am loved, Isaac. Every day, in 1,000 small ways, you show me that I am loved. They sat together in the firelight, two people who had found each other against all odds and had built something lasting and true. Outside, snow began to fall, just as it had been falling that night 40 years ago when a rejected woman and a passing cowboy had met and changed the course of both their lives. Lily thought of Samuel Pritchard, long since passed away, and felt nothing but a distant gratitude for the rejection that had seemed so devastating at the time. She thought of her younger self, standing alone and afraid, and wished she could tell that woman that everything would work out better than she could possibly imagine. She thought of all the women she had helped over the years, women who had been cast aside or overlooked or judged, and hoped that she had given them some measure of the hope that Isaac had given her. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked, as he had asked her countless times over the years. "About how their loss was your greatest gain," Lily said, "and about how it was mine too, because if they had accepted me, I would never have been standing on that corner. I would never have met you. I would have lived a very different life." "A lesser life," Isaac said firmly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps just different. But I cannot imagine any life better than this one. A life with you." Isaac kissed the top of her head, a gesture so familiar and comforting that Lily felt herself relaxing completely into his embrace. They stayed that way for a long time, watching the fire burn down to embers, listening to the wind outside, and feeling the deep contentment that came from a life well lived and love well earned. In the years that followed, as they moved into their 60s and then their 70s, Lily and Isaac remained active and engaged with their family and community. They slowed down, certainly. Isaac no longer worked with the horses himself, leaving that entirely to Jamie and Jamie's oldest son, who showed every sign of being a third-generation horseman. Lily's hands grew stiff with arthritis, making the fine needlework she had once excelled at more difficult, though she still sewed when she could. But they were together, and that was what mattered. They took daily walks around the property when weather permitted, Isaac using a cane after a fall that left him with a limp, Lily holding his free arm. They told stories to their great-grandchildren, who began arriving as the oldest grandchildren married and started families of their own. They watched sunrises and sunsets, marked the changing seasons, and treasured each day as the gift it was. When Isaac was 78 and Lily 76, he fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. Lily nursed him through it with the same fierce determination she brought to everything she cared about, and he recovered, though he was weaker afterward. The doctor said his heart was not as strong as it once had been, and recommended he take things easy. "I've been taking things easy for 10 years, Isaac grumbled from his chair by the fire. "Then take them easier," Lily said tartly, tucking another blanket around him. He caught her hand and pulled her down to sit beside him. "Lily, I need you to promise me something. Anything. If I go first, I need you to promise me you will not spend the rest of your life grieving. You will live. You will enjoy our children and grandchildren. You will keep doing the things you love. Isaac, do not talk like that. I am serious. His eyes were intense on hers. You have so much life in you still. Promise me you will live it even if I am not here to share it. Lily's throat tightened. Only if you promise me the same. If I go first, you will not just shut down, you will keep going. I promise, Isaac said. Though God willing, neither of us is going anywhere for a good long while yet. It was a promise they both kept in their hearts as the months passed, and Isaac gradually regained his strength. By spring, he was back to his daily walks and even doing light chores around the property. Life returned to its comfortable rhythm, and they celebrated Lily's 77th birthday surrounded by family, with more than 30 people crammed into the house for cake and laughter. That summer, on a warm evening in August, Lily and Isaac sat on the porch they had added to the house years ago, watching the sun set over the land they had worked and loved for more than 50 years. Their hands were clasped together, fingers intertwined, and they sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from decades of companionship. Lily, Isaac said quietly, yes, I want you to know that every word I spoke to you that first day was true. Their loss was my greatest gain. You were, and are, and always will be the best thing that ever happened to me. Lily turned to look at him, seeing the young cowboy he had been overlaid with the old man he had become, and loving both equally. And you are mine, my rescuer, my partner, my great love. I would not trade a single moment of our life together. Not even the hard times, not even those. They shaped us. They made us stronger. Isaac smiled and lifted her hand to his lips. Then we have lived well, you and I. We have lived very well indeed, Lily agreed. They sat together as the sky faded from gold to pink to purple, and the first stars began to appear. Somewhere in the distance, one of their grandchildren called to another, and the sound of young laughter carried on the evening breeze. The horses whinnied in their corral. A night bird sang its twilight song. And Lily Crawford Coleman, who had once been a rejected woman standing alone in the snow, looked at the life spread out before her and knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The scar on her face had faded to a pale line that most people did not even notice anymore, but even if it had remained as prominent as it once was, it would not have mattered. She had learned long ago that she was more than her scars. She was a woman who was deeply loved, and who loved deeply in return. She was a mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. She was a friend and mentor. She was a partner who had helped build something lasting. And she was the wife of Isaac Coleman, the cowboy who had stopped in the snow and seen her not as damaged or broken, but as precious and worthy of love. That single act of kindness had rippled out across decades, creating waves of joy and love that had touched countless lives. As the stars brightened overhead and Isaac's thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand, Lily sent up a silent prayer of gratitude for the rejection that had led her to Miles City, for the snow that had left her stranded, for the cowboy who had stopped to help, for every moment, both difficult and joyful, that had brought her to this perfect evening. Their story had started with heartbreak and had transformed into a love that would endure long after they were both gone, living on in their children and grandchildren, and in the legacy of compassion and courage they had modeled. It was a story of second chances and seeing past surface appearances to the person beneath. It was a story of choosing love over fear, again and again, day after day, year after year. It was a story of a Wild West filled with harsh realities and harder choices, but also with unexpected kindness and enduring hope. It was a story of two people who had found each other, when they needed each other most, and had built a life that proved love was always worth the risk. And as they sat together on the porch of the house Isaac had built, surrounded by the land they had claimed and tamed and nurtured, Lily knew that this was the happy ending she had never dared to dream of all those years ago. Not an ending at all, really, but a continuing story that would live on through generations. The moon rose full and bright over Montana, casting silver light across the valley, and Lily Coleman smiled, her hand warm in her husband's grasp, her heart full, her life complete.